I must be a glutton for punishment doing these videos one after the other while Mercury is slowly going direct because of all sorts of technical issues that I've been dealing with. But let's keep going because, as I've mentioned in the last couple of videos, there are some transits and some changes that are coming up over the next few days that are worth building towards. Tomorrow night, before midnight Pacific time, Mars moves from Libra into Scorpio, and that moves a really large number of planets into three signs, three consecutive signs: Scorpio, Sagittarius, and Capricorn. We're going to have Mars, the Sun, and Mercury in Scorpio. We will have Venus and Jupiter in Sagittarius, and we will have Capricorn, Pluto, and the South Node in Capricorn. Really only leaving Neptune, Chiron, Uranus, and the North Node and the Moon out of the picture. So the focus is getting tighter and tighter on three signs. And really, as we head into 2020, as we head into January through March, really the concentration is going to move into the sign of Capricorn. So that's roughly where we're headed at this point in time. The sign of Sagittarius sits between Scorpio and Capricorn and is going to provide a much needed balm, I think. When we talk of Scorpio season, as I've outlined, it lasts from, and everyone's talking about Scorpio season, or at least people who are into astrology are talking about Scorpio season this fall. It lasts from October the 3rd of 2019 to January the 3rd of 2020. Sagittarius season, insofar as this season is being defined as planets and personal planets, specifically Mercury, Venus, Mars, the Sun, as transiting through a certain part of the chart. Sagittarius season, in some respects, is longer than even Scorpio season, longer than 3 months, because Venus moved into Sagittarius on November the 1st. And by the time Mars is done with Sagittarius, we're practically looking at the middle of March or the end of March or something along those lines. But the transits through Sagittarius are relatively normal. They're not like Scorpio, where we have had a Mercury retrograde and then going direct, and really a narrative and a handoff building, and a relationship between a retrograde planet and last year's activities and a certain amount of intensity. And then, of course, when it comes to Capricorn, we have the Capricorn eclipse that occurs around Christmas time this year that launches 6 months. The first 6 months of next year are going to have a strong Capricorn influence. And really, the way the planets come together in Capricorn, it's hard to ignore some sort of a narrative going on there. There's such heavy hitters that go in there. By the time we're in December, Venus and Jupiter will have moved from Sagittarius into Capricorn. And by the time the Capricorn eclipse occurs, and certainly the Cancer eclipse on January the 10th, we're going to have Mercury, Venus, the Sun, Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto, all in Capricorn by the time we're in January. So in between Scorpio and Sagittarius and Capricorn, we have the sign of Sagittarius, which the planets are moving through. Venus is there currently with Jupiter, and that is going to be a separate video in the next couple of days. The Sun comes in here on the 22nd, 23rd in a few days' time, and we have a new moon in Sagittarius on the 26th. So while we'll talk about Scorpio season and Capricorn season, it's fair and important to note that there are all these planets that are transitioning from Scorpio and into Capricorn. And yes, Scorpio season continues in earnest and with a certain amount of importance till January the 3rd, are going to be going through the sign of Sagittarius. Now, as I've mentioned in these videos before, consecutive signs share a common interest. And with the signs of Scorpio and Sagittarius, it is the truth. In the sign of Scorpio, it's the truth related to relationships and our emotional and financial entanglements. And when it comes to the sign of Sagittarius, it's the truth related to our own internal truth, our own internal compass, our own sense of purpose, and our sense of truth with God, divinity, a higher power, our sense of what is true for us. So with Scorpio, it is what is authentic in relationships. With Sagittarius, it is what is authentic in our relationship with ourselves. And Sagittarius in this regard is both a sign of independence and a sign of wisdom and a sign of really connection with God and spirit. There are two signs that are ruled by Jupiter, Guru in Hindi or Sanskrit, a word that is used in English as well. And sort of the king of the gods, so to speak, or the king of the planets, if we want to use that kind of analogy, the good luck planet, the planet that connects us to source. The two signs that Jupiter rules, Sagittarius and Pisces, have a really strong independent streak in them, so that even if they are in partnership, in marriage, somehow entwined, somehow enslaved, somehow, they're there, but they're not quite there. People with strong Sagittarius and Pisces placements can never quite be fenced in, because somewhere in the makeup of this sign is a strong connection of authenticity towards ourselves, the divinity within, the divinity without, why we're here, truth, authenticity. So Scorpio and Sagittarius have a preoccupation with the truth, but as I've mentioned in these videos before, the consecutive sign somehow liberates the previous sign. And insofar as Scorpio is preoccupied by, and we are currently preoccupied by, because it is Scorpio season, and because Mars comes into Scorpio in a couple of days' time, frankly tomorrow night, and Mercury goes direct the day after, and we have Mars here till January the 3rd, our preoccupation with financial and emotional entanglements with other people and codependencies and the truth in relationships and long-standing issues and problems that need to be resolved is very present. The sign of Sagittarius comes along and takes those preoccupations with other people away and requires us then to, as a balm, focus on our relationship with ourselves and our relationship with truth. And the planetary transits through Sagittarius will provide a necessary and helpful counterbalance as we deal with the heaviness of Scorpio till January the 3rd, and really, quite honestly, the heaviness of Capricorn, given the nature of the planets and the transits that are going to be occurring there, especially as we head towards January. What is important for this video is to note that Sagittarius is a sign of our own internal compass, our own sense of goals, our own sense of truth, our own sense of authenticity, a certain amount of wisdom and philosophical remove as we consider those things, our sense of connection to Spirit or God, where we pray, where we feel connected to something bigger, higher than ourselves. Anything that expands our mind and takes us out of the mundane, everyday, gossipy, commutey, day-to-day activity hamster wheel that we're on. Venus is the first of the planets to come in here on November the 1st, for all intents and purposes. And I've mentioned in these videos before, and this is what this video is about, that Venus's presence in Sagittarius has been helpful insofar as she, the female feminine planet of relationships, was liberated from Scorpio. Venus does not do very well, is interested in harmony and successful relationships and close connections, and does not necessarily view too much looking under the covers at the truth of things as being really conducive to harmony in relationships. Honestly, it isn't. Relationships are messy, and Venus is all about moving towards the non-messy and what looks good and can sort of a fake it till you make it looking good kind of aspect to Venus if it's not very developed. Obviously, what we want to move towards is Venus's higher or more evolved demand for true harmony and true understanding and true love and true giving and true receptivity and true respect. Planets are in themselves stand for something but are also limited, and this is where planets need each other, even opposing energies. So Venus needs Mars, even though Venusian principles are excluded from Martian principles, so to speak. But in order to get to that honest truth and success in relationships, you need Mars and Scorpio's investigation of what is true in a relationship and what can be changed, and whether a relationship truly has a strong foundation and is truly constructive or not. And Venus in and of herself is uncomfortable in that kind of energy. When she moves into Sagittarius, I'm not going to say that she's delighted and jumping around, because Sagittarius is not exactly a sign that's up for commitment insofar as it retains this strong sense of independence. But this sense of independence has been a helpful antidote and balm. The word balm keeps coming up with the sign of Sagittarius at this time, because Venus in Sagittarius is helping us keep some perspective on what we value being a very Venusian word, what we value as we navigate through Scorpio waters. When we're being true to ourselves, what do we want out of our relationship to others? Which means that we have to be clear about what we want out of our relationship to ourselves. What is important to us about who we are helps us understand what we will or will not tolerate in other relationships, or put up with in other relationships, or fight for or not fight for. Fighting is not really a Venusian word. It gives us a sense of understanding when we're looking at financial and emotional enmeshments in a deeper and more directed way for the rest of the year till January the 3rd. Venus's presence here till the 25th of November will put us in touch with our own values and our own sense of self. Now, when it comes to your own chart, I would now start to pay attention to, as I said, what house and therefore what part of life does Scorpio sit in your chart. The same for Sagittarius, and the same down the line for Capricorn. I will cover Capricorn stuff in these videos as we move forward. But the sign of Sagittarius is going to start to have more and more activity. The sun moves in here in 3 days' time, roughly 3 or 4 days' time, and we have a new moon on the 26th here. So Sagittarius season does begin and is pretty extended, but it has a normal narrative. It's not full of drama necessarily, but at least some of our energy is going to start to be directed there. So far, the energy has been isolated because we've had one planet there so far, Venus, and so far Venus's help and greater comfort has been directed towards how we feel about ourselves as we contemplate what is true for us and where it is that we need to set our boundaries in relationships that have close emotional and financial enmeshments. Venus moves out of Sagittarius on the 25th and into Capricorn. The first of the planets that is not in Capricorn to move in there. And at that point in time, she ushers in a different set of values and evaluation, and we'll cover that when we get to that point. But by the time she leaves on November the 25th, the sun will be in, and it'll be one day before the Sagittarius new moon. So she will do and complete her handoff to a pretty heavy hitter planet, the sun, insofar as we consider the sun a planet for the purposes of astrology, and setting us up for the new moon. The effect of Venus and Sagittarius may have been subtle, but where Sagittarius sits and what Sagittarius stands for has been unmistakable. More of a baseline, more of a drumbeat, but a helpful crutch, a helpful cane as we stumble through Scorpio season. Okay, if you like this video and find it helpful, feel free to share it with individuals or through social media, however you want to share it. Feel free to like the video, comment on it, subscribe to my YouTube channel, click on the bell icon next to the subscribe button to be notified when I do new videos. My email address is in the description area, so you're welcome to contact me for a reading, or if you want me to make an easy to read version of your chart, that'll tell you which sign sits in which houses, and I will leave it at that. Over and out till our next communication.